So back to Sebastian Junger. He points out, the total cost of the recession. Well, first of all, he's talking about, what the banksters did to us. And he says almost 90% of corporate fraud cases, insider trading, kickback, bribes, false accounting, implicated the company's chief executive officer and or chief financial officer. Total costs for the recession have been estimated to be as high as $14 trillion, or about $45,000 per American citizen. Most tribal and subsistence-level societies would inflict severe punishment on anyone who caused that kind of damage. He says dishonest bankers and welfare or insurance cheats are the modern equivalent of tribe members who quietly steal more than their fair share of meat or other resources. So, Thomas Paine, well, without getting into the whole Thomas Paine thing. So essentially what Sebastian Junger is arguing is that when people are deployed, when soldiers are deployed into war zones like Iraq and Afghanistan, because they literally, their lives depend on their brothers and sisters around them, they become a tribe. Now, you've heard me talk about this before. When Louise and I, back about 4 years ago, moved on to this 30-year-old boat in the marina that we live in, we needed help from people around us, and we all needed each other when Hurricane Sandy came through. And, thank God it didn't hit the marina, because, people could have died. And I in this program I came on and I said, I have this belief based on, all my years on this planet and all the various places that I've lived around the world and the various circumstances under which I've lived, that the closer people live to death, the more quickly they form community. Louise and I, when we first moved to Washington, D.C., we moved to an apartment building. It was one of the few that allowed dogs and cats. We had cats at the time. And it was obscenely expensive. But not only that, and it was right downtown. It was down near Chinatown, in an area called Penn Quarter. But not only that, the protocol was you don't talk to your neighbors in the elevator. It's considered rude. You don't talk to your neighbors who live on either side of you. It's considered rude. I mean, I never knew even the first name of the people who lived around me. Whereas I moved into a marina, and suddenly everybody, literally people would come over with casseroles and say, hey, welcome to the community. And, it's like, I've developed some really wonderful friendships there that, and we saw the same thing living on the river in Portland, living on a houseboat or a floating home in the river in Portland. Again, in 1999, during the flood in Portland, our entire community almost washed away. People almost lost everything. Some people almost died. And thankfully, nobody did. But people do occasionally. In our community the year before we moved in, this is the Portland community, there was a 7-year-old kid that got washed away and died. And numerous dogs have been washed away and died. Somebody died in the marina that we used to live in just a couple of years ago, just one night, going home in the winter and slipping and falling into the river, couldn't get out, hypothermia, bang, you're dead. So what happens when people are deployed is there's this sense of tribe, this sense of community that brings people together and meets basic human needs. We're primates. 3.5 million years of evolution since we split from chimpanzees have primed us for this. And then you look at the Libertarian Party. And the Libertarian Party, and to a large extent the Republican Party as well, but the Libertarian Party is like the most toxic influence in the Republican Party. This is their contemporary platform. This is from June 2014. They haven't yet adopted their new platform. As libertarians, we seek a world of liberty, a world in which all individuals are sovereign over their own lives and no one is forced to sacrifice for the benefit of others. You get this? Now, in 1980, the Libertarian Party platform didn't have such flowery language as the 2014 one. In 2014, they're basically trying to make it palatable to millennials by making a language sufficiently complex and flowery that it sounds fast. We realize that our planet's climate is constantly changing, but environmental advocates and social pressure are the most effective means of changing public behavior. In other words, government shouldn't do anything about this. Energy and resources. We oppose all government control of energy pricing, allocation, and production. Oh, yeah, we may have an energy crisis. This is not the government. We're not all in this together. We favor free market banking with unrestricted competition, no rules. Labor markets, employment and compensation agreements between private employers and employees are outside the scope of government. This is from the Contemporary. Education is best provided by the free market. In other words, no more government schools. Shut down all those public schools. We favor a free market healthcare system. No more Medicaid, no more Medicare, no more Obamacare. Retirement planning is the responsibility of the individual, not the government. Libertarians would phase out the current government-sponsored Social Security system and transition to a private voluntary system. This is sociopathic. This is Ayn Rand saying, as we played last week for you, when I die, it's not that I've died, the world ends. This is putting oneself right at the center of the planet, and it's the opposite of what human societies need. We need more tribe.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here, and please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.